Listen up, get ready, I'm not gonna take no more. There's a revolution, a revelation going on in my soul. Buckle up, get ready, we're not gonna sit back.
Welcome back to Live from the Heartland, all you citizens of the world. This is for the week of January 9th, and it is a heavy time in the world. And I thought it would be good to discuss serious issues as well as some lighter issues with an old friend who happens to be in Chicago right now. The one and only Skip Richeimer. He's a retired builder and a professional sailor, and we go way back. So good day to you there, Skip. How you doing?
Hello, Michael. Yes, we go back. I was thinking about an old 49 International 3/4 ton pickup that you trashed.
Oh, I remember that. Yeah. But I remember mostly, I think we probably met either through Carol Travis or Gloria Peterson.
Gloria.
We're at Lake Forest, but had been at the University of Chicago. And so we're talking the early 1960s. And one of my most distinct memories is following you. I had I think a Chevy station wagon, and you were on a Triumph motorcycle, and we were down near the Museum of Natural History, and you took a fall or crashed, and we loaded your bike into the car. Oh, there's a Triumph on your shirt for the people who are listening, not viewing. And I have a Triumph shirt I wear a lot. And we took the motorcycle to, I think your father had at that time, Richeimer Coffee.
Exactly.
It used to smell like coffee on Halsted down near Chicago Avenue.
Yes, very good memory. And I had forgotten that you were the one that witnessed my accident. And that was a 650 Triumph. And it was wrecked so badly that I had to get a new bike. I got a 500.
Was there a motorcycle club at the University of Chicago with you, Danny Lyon, other people, Norland Hagen, called the Blessed Mother Virgin Motorcycle Club?
I wish there had been. We certainly were riding motorcycles together, Norland and Manny and Danny Lyon. I'm still in touch with Danny and Manny. Manny's up in British Columbia, where he went 40 years ago. And Danny Lyon's down in Bernalillo, New Mexico.
Yeah, he's a hell of a photographer still. I have a few prints that he gave me, and I'm holding on to them for my old age.
They're valuable now.
Anyhow, the next thing I remember is you were at Berkley, and when I showed up at Berkley in the fall of 1964 to go to graduate school, you were already there living in Canyon, and I stayed with you for a while until I got my own place in Oakland.
Oh, that's great. I'm glad you're reminding me of these things because I had forgotten.
Oh, you have, huh? Well, what year were you in at Berkley? What year were you in the history department in graduate school? I was in sociology.
I was in that. I got my master's at the University of Chicago, and then I went out for a PhD at Berkeley. And I was in, that would have been maybe my second year. It was also the year of the FSM. So I was very much involved with FSM at that point.
Well, tell our listeners and viewers a little bit about the free speech movement. It was one of my earliest busts. And when they dragged me out of Sproul Hall, fill us in, Skip.
Well, it's a long story, but essentially the university was trying to shut down the tables where people were, everyone from the ROTC to the people who were going to the South.
People had come back from working in the Freedom Summer with Student Nonviolent Coordinating.
Exactly. So they were trying to shut down this free speech on campus, and this was a reaction to that. And it went on for several months, actually. I was very much involved. I organized the graduate coordinating committee, so we had graduate students involved. And then I was the head TA in Latin American history. So my office, I had a telephone. That made me in charge of the strike. We knew that we talked about it in meetings. how we were going to bring this to the light of the news. And we decided that we needed to have an outrage. And the outrage was you being hauled out of Sproul Hall. And I ran the strike. We had organized the strike, and I ran it from my TA office.
Nice. I remember when we went into Sproul Hall. I mean, it was after months of Joan Baez and Willie Brown, all kind of people showing up and speaking on the steps. There was a rally every day. And then finally we went in to the Sproul Hall, and we got dragged out and taken to Santa Rita to the county prison farm or whatever it was. And I remember we got out of prison or out of the lockup, we rushed back to campus and tried to block the trucks bringing in food for the cafeteria and that kind of thing. And this went on for a long time, but we won that one.
Right. It was a victory. Finally, the university backed down. And a big deal. They allowed us to put up these card tables, and kids could talk to other students and try and get them involved in different political and non-political issues.
Yeah, no, there were right-wingers there were left-wingers, there was the Du Bois Club, SDS, right. Everybody.
And ROTC.
Yeah.
As well. So,
we all got along back then.
Wasn't it amazing?
Well, I had come to your house probably a day or so before, but I remember walking on campus with my little attaché case and my pork chop sideburns and mustache and sport jacket. I was going to be a sociology professor. And there was a police car with Jack Weinberg, who went on to work for Greenpeace. And he was in the car, had been arrested, and the car was surrounded. And that was the first day. First day. And then right away, I sort of knew I was not going to be like a serious graduate student. And I met a couple of guys. I don't know if you remember Davey Wellman or Joe Blum, and Steve Weissman. There were a whole lot of people who...
Steve Weissman, I knew from the University of Chicago because we had been involved with some protests over the university housing, which was in those days segregated, and they wouldn't rent. We set up some black students to try and get apartments, and they couldn't get them. And that's when we figured out that the university, which was one of the three largest landowners, the Catholic Church, the university, and Marshall Field were the three biggest landowners in Chicago. And the university was keeping black students out. Anyway, so that's how I met Steve Weissman. Well,
Berkeley was a wonderful time back then. And I think probably still is, even though they made a few compromises with the Trump administration. But what happened to you after that? I didn't ever see you again until your 70th birthday party down in near Big Sur, down in a place called Rocky Creek. And but in between, you had become a builder and a professional sailor. Fill us in a little bit about your work experience and how that might relate to anything or anybody.
Well, what happened was my wife at the time, Sue, and I left. I left before I got I got advanced to candidacy as in Latin American history, and then I never wrote my thesis. So Sue and I had a little 25-foot sailboat, and we towed it across country to Florida. And we sold the truck and the trailer and put the boat in the water, and we were going to sail around the world. So we went off to the Bahamas, and we were in the Bahamas for a few months. And in those days, the people that were sailing were mostly retired military, the people who were cruising around with the boats. And we decided after a few months that we didn't want to do that anymore. So we came back to Florida, put the boat up for sale, took a couple of backpacks, and went to Europe. Because Sue was pregnant then, and we thought we'd like to have this is war in Vietnam, remember? So we wanted to have our child, who we thought could be a boy, and there could be the war in Vietnam might still be going on. We didn't realize you could have substitute different wars then. You could always find a war for America to fight.
Yeah, clearly now we're picking them.
Yeah, I mean, now we just kidnap one person at a time, kill a few fishermen, and anyway. So we went to Europe. We were going to have our baby in England because they didn't have conscription, and they spoke English. And we were in England for 10 days, and we couldn't stand it. It was gray, and it was a little depressing for us coming from California. So we knew one other person in Europe. We knew Art Fayer, who we had met at the University of Chicago when he was a law student. And he was a friend of Norland's as well. And Art Fayer was living in Spain. So we went to join him in Spain. We ended up spending 10 years there, having our 3 children born there. And of course, we still have the house that I built there in 1970. We spend about a third of the year. We go twice in the spring and the fall. We go to my house in Spain.
Well, we know you were a sailor, and we have a good friend in common who has been on this show a lot, Peter Kuttner. He's a filmmaker, a cameraman for Hollywood movies, and his dad and your dad were friends, and they were sailors. And I don't know if they sailed together or whatever, but...
Yes, in fact, Peter's father sailed with my father, and they raced in the Mackinac race and a bunch of other races. I sailed all my life. That's why my name is Skip. I was skipper when I was a little boy. And when we sailed in Spain, I got involved with hashish smuggling back to the States. So I'd go once a year, I'd go to Morocco, buy some hashish, sail it across the ocean and sell it. And I did that for a few years until I got busted in France in 1981. And I was busted. I spent 5 years in French jails.
You were in prison for 5 years?
A bit more. 5 years. So it's a very interesting experience, as you can imagine. I got involved with translating Ram Dass's book, Be Here Now.
I love that book.
So Be Here Now was a manual for yoga and meditation for people in prison. And I translated it into French. That was my main occupation during that time. Anyway, I got out of prison and I became a professional sailor and ran different sailboats, mostly, occasional powerboat. And so I had 3 careers. I was a builder, and I was a smuggler, and I was a yacht captain.
I remember hearing that you were sailing boats up and down the East Coast. In the spring, you'd move them from Florida up to Nantucket or someplace like that. And then in the fall, you'd move them back down to Florida.
Well, what happened is that my wife at the time, an British woman, we bought a 55-foot sailboat, and we chartered it in the charter business to support ourselves. And we would go up and down. We would spend the winters in the Caribbean and the summers in New England in the charter business. And I lived on that boat for 11 years and finally sold it in 2007. And then I had another captain's job for a while. And then I retired in 2009.
Are you still sailing, Skip?
Yeah, still we have a little catboat in Miami and a little catboat in Martha's Vineyard.
You live in Florida now, right?
Well, I live 3 places. My partner, Ricky, has a house that she's had for 45 years in Miami. So we spend the 4 cold months in Miami. And then we spend the 4 hot months in Martha's Vineyard, and we spend the spring months at my house in Spain.
Well, given that you live in Florida, I'd like to get your take on what's going on in that state.
I live in Florida, Mike. I live in Florida, but my home is in Martha's Vineyard.
So you don't vote in Florida?
I don't vote in Florida. If everyone who wants me to vote in Florida, I can't say I don't want to vote for Elizabeth Warren. I don't want to vote for anyway, so I consider myself a Massachusetts resident. I am Massachusetts resident.
I love New England. I'm a Connecticut guy myself.
Exactly.
What's going on in Florida these days?
I mean, it's horrible, as you know. I mean, the Trump lives there. DeSantis is the governor. He's going doing all kinds of right-wing things against the universities, against it. I mean, we're in a horrible situation. The only thing I have hope for is, having studied history, you know, we've gone through horrible periods in this country, and we're going to survive. We're going to survive Trump. Believe it or not, in a few years, we'll probably be gone, but Trump is going to be gone too.
I hope he goes before us.
I hope so too. That's what I'm crossing my fingers. But anyway, well, I think it's very easy, if you pay attention to the news, to be really depressed.
You were talking to me a little bit before we started about watching the news. Give us your wrap on that.
My position at this point in my life, I'm 88, by the way. So I'm only going to spend a certain amount of time depressing myself and feeling terrible each day. And I can do that very easily by listening to the radio, or I don't watch TV, but I could watch TV, or I could read the paper, and I could be well informed and well depressed. And I'm going to be less well informed and less depressed.
Well, that's a good thing. I confess to, I only yell at the TV a little bit and go. I do a lot of swearing while I'm watching the news.
Of course, I mean, if you.
But I don't feel depressed. I just feel pissed off.
You let it go. That's good. That's the yoga way.
Well, let me ask you, as a historian of Latin American studies, your take on what's currently going on with, the Monroe Doctrine, which he's now trying to call the Donroe Doctrine. And all of a sudden we have this guy, Marco Rubio, who has really always had an in for Cuba. And I think he feels he had a lot of influence on this. And if you took down Maduro in Venezuela and block the oil, it's going to starve Cuba out. But Trump is also talking about Petro in Colombia, who's a progressive guy now. He's talking about Mexico. He's talking about taking on Cuba. What's your sense of Latin American policy on the part of Trump and where it's all going?
Well, it's horrible. I mean, it's ridiculous and it's horrible.
I need more details from you, more observations, even though you don't listen or watch the news that much.
Well, I mean, imagine how desperate the most powerful country in the world has to be to kidnap the president of another country because they have oil. I mean, that's desperation.
Right? Well, he's definitely out of sorts, that's for sure.
It's really, Michael, it's a depressing situation if you pay attention. And of course, a lot of people are paying attention. But I don't think there's anything we can do. Remember, this guy was elected. Half the population thought that this man, who's the president now, is the man that should be running the most powerful country in the world, have his finger on the nuclear button. I don't know what we can do to open the mind of the American voting population. I think it's a desperate situation.
Well, I do think we are a nation in decline. I don't mean that in a really bad way. I just think that we aren't keeping up with technological innovation. I mean, we've taken a step backward, like around solar power. The Chinese are making a lot of advances, and we just get caught up in this BS. And
exactly. And for example, just last week, Spain ran the entire country for 9 hours on renewable energy between wind and solar. China, what I do pay attention to a little bit is what China is doing. The bridges, the railroads, all the solar panels. I mean, I think, I'll give you my take, which may not be terribly popular. I think that the planet will be saved by the Chinese. The Chinese are smart, they're pragmatic, and they've got no religion. And I think that there's the hope of the planet.
Well, that's interesting. I won't dispute that at all. It looks like that's what's going on. I mean, a lot of places are winding down, so to speak, deteriorating, and other places are moving forward. Clearly, the Chinese have a better idea about energy, infrastructure, and are putting their money where the mouth is, or the mouth where the money is, or whatever that is. Well, Skip, we're going to run out of time shortly. You got any other things about your interesting life that you'd like to share with our viewers and our listeners? And any advice, any hopes, anything like that?
That's a big question.
Well,
I'll tell you, one thing which is interesting is you get old and then very old, your perspective changes a little bit, because what's real for old people is at the end. We're almost at the end. I'm lucky, I'm in good shape, I'm very old, but I know I don't have long to live. So you give you a perspective on what maybe is important and what we should not waste.
That's true. And you got family.
I remember what Cynthia Williams said. Don't live your life too quickly.
Cynthia Williams is a friend of both of ours. She was kind of the woman in charge of the Williams compound in the Carmel Highlands. And we had a lot of great discussions down there.
John, I've been in contact with a little bit too. And he's also a newspaper reader, head bouncing off the table kind of guy, and can't free himself from the depression of the politics. But and not to mention the fact that his body's falling apart, and he can't drive his tractor anymore, and all the things that we can't do anymore.
This is a friend of both of ours who was also involved in the free speech movement early on, who became a river master in various rivers in California, lives way up in the north, and he's kind of a curmudgeon, but a wonderful guy.